everybody, welcome back to my channel and another tutorial. Today I'm going to sew along with you the September 2022 Bag of the Month Club Bag, the Moana shoulder bag by Tobi Stylx Patterns. Super honored that Tobi asked me to do a tutorial for her Bag of the Month submission. So yeah, if you're part of the Bag of the Month Club, you can get this one. Otherwise, I believe the pattern will release to the general public in 3 months, 3 or 4 months, something like that. I'm not 100% sure how that works, but currently this is part of the August, September, October Bag of the Month Club for the year 2022. Let me show you some of the amazing features of this bag. So it's got this really unique kind of pillowy pleated type look. It's super soft. It has, I guess probably my favorite thing is here, you can see on the straps, we use eyelets to make this, and a buckle to make this strap either a handbag size or a shorter shoulder bag or a longer shoulder bag, completely adjustable for that shoulder strap. In the pattern, it gives you two options. You can have a magnetic snap closure. In this tutorial, I show you how to do the recessed zipper closure. On the inside, we have a slip pocket and a decorative zipper pocket. One thing I did change in the pattern is how the bottom stabilizer is put in. I did not have glue to glue that stabilizer in. My Decavol Heavy, and I didn't have an iron small enough to be able to put it in where it would go in the construction of this bag. In this tutorial, I do show you when you would be putting it in if you're going to be doing it that way. I chose to do a false bottom at the close to the end of the video when we're finishing up this bag. I do show you how to make a false bottom, so if you decide to do it like me, you definitely can. What did I use in this bag? This is the mustard Mora from Emmaline bags, Mora faux leather. My hardware is from Emmaline bags as well. I did not have 1-inch buckles, so I did adjust it down to a 3/4 inch buckle, and it actually still turned out very good. My little eyelets I got from just Fabricland, and I just installed them by hand. My zippers and zipper pulls are from blue Calla. Interfacing in this bag, it calls for Decavol light. For the main pieces, I used EB Fuse Heavy from Emmaline bags, which is an equivalent. All my cotton pieces are backed with a woven interfacing. I used EB Fuse Light from Emmaline bags. The corrugated plastic I used in my false bottom is just something I picked up from Michael's. Super cheap to do that, and I buy big boards of it and I can just cut it the way I want it to go. My lining fabric, it was actually in my scrap bin. I don't know what it was called, but I do know I bought it from Catch's Quilt Shop here in Kamloops. What else to say about this bag? It does say it's an intermediate bag, but I honestly think an adventurous beginner could do it as well. Just take it slow and watch this video and go step by step with me, and you should have no problems. What else? Thank you so much, Tobi, for including me in your Bag of the Month Club journey. And yeah, I think that's everything I need to talk about. Oh, for the Decavol Light or EB Fuse Heavy pieces, the pattern calls for just doing it for the whole piece. If you're on a domestic machine and you're worried about that thickness, just keep those pieces, your interfacing pieces, about 3/8 of an inch outside of the seam allowances, and you'll have no problems. In this video, I'm on an industrial machine, so I didn't trim any of it away, but for a domestic machine, I definitely would suggest trimming that interfacing out by about 3/8 of an inch all the way around. Anyways, how about we get to making this bag? You're going to need some rivets, eyelets, number 5 zipper tape, 2 buckles, a zipper end, 2 number 5 zipper pulls, optional strap ends, and your nameplate. Going to need your 2 main exterior panels. I have mine backed with EB Fuse Heavy, 2 buckle anchors, your strap piece, your 2 top trim, your slip pocket,
your 2 zipper pocket pieces, 2 lining panels, all my cotton backed with EB Fuse Light or woven interfacing, your slip pocket and zipper pocket overlay pieces. Okay, so I'm going to be doing a false bottom. So these are my false bottom pieces. I just use a corrugated plastic and some cotton cut to the measurements on the screen. I'll show you how to make this closer to the end of the tutorial. Okay, so I am doing a 3/4 inch strap as I only have 3/4 inch buckles. If you need a class on how to make straps, that's down below in the description. The next thing, once we have our straps all done, is we want to do our placement for our eyelet. So you want to measure up 8.5 inches from one short end and then make a mark centered from there and every 2 inches until you have 4 marks. Next, you're going to go ahead, punch those holes, and install those eyelets on both ends. And this is what it looks like when you're all done. Now we're going to pull out our 2 buckle anchors here. So we're going to draw a line down the middle of each of these. I'm going to use a little bit of double-sided tape, and we're going to fold those long ends into that center line. You will do this for both buckle connectors. Okay, next you're going to measure it down 1.5 inches from one of the short ends, nice and centered, and place a mark. Here we are going to go ahead and punch a hole. This is going to be for the little tongue of our buckle to go through. Take your buckle so the buckle closes upwards. Put the strap through the bottom. Put the little prong through the hole and the short end back through like so, down that around that middle bar. And I'm just going to use a small amount of double-sided tape to hold this nice and tight, wrong sides together like so. Repeat with the other buckle. Okay, so our main panels, we want to work on our pleats. So what I've done is I've just gone and just made little snips into our pleat marks here. This makes it super easy for transferring those marks. Find your top center of your main exterior pieces. Lay your pattern piece on top, and I'm just taking my Tandy leather erasable pen and making marks where those little pleat marks were. To do the other side, flip your pattern piece over and mark the opposite side. All right, so starting from the center and working outward, we're going to start with the left-hand side. You're going to bring those 2 marks together and then kind of push the pleat to the left. It's important from the center mark that these pleats are going towards the outside of the bag. So as you can see, I'm kind of bringing those 2 lines together and then pushing it to the left and then securing that with a clip. 2 lines together, pushing to the left, securing with a clip. You can see how that is forming our little pleats here. You'll do the same with the other side, but you will make sure that you're pushing the pleats to the right on the opposite side, like so. And we'll take this over to the machine and we're just going to baste those folds in place. So I found it easiest to work from the center and on the way out. That way your pleats aren't kind of getting stuck when you're going over them in the opposite direction. This is just the easiest way to baste them on. So start from the center and work outward, and then flip it around, center, and work outward, stitching in the same direction that your pleats are folded. Okay, so now I just want to make sure that they are the same width here, which they are. You can kind of see how you can kind of bubble them out. Now this is where I want to put my nameplate on as well. So I'm kind of folding that bottom folded section where those box corners are up and out of the way, and I'm measuring up 2 inches and centered, and that's where I'm going to install my nameplate. Now what we want to do is put these right sides together, so kind of have one bubbled out like so. You can see how one's concave and one's kind of indented, so they fit nicely together. And we're going to match up the sides like so. I find when you have one kind of bubbled in and one kind of opposite, that they fit together nicely to be able to get these seams together a lot easier than if they were both popped out, if that makes sense. Then we're going to go ahead and we are going to sew down these sides with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so now this is the hardest part I find. We want to connect our buckles to the sides. So from the folded part here, I'm actually just measuring down 1 inch. This is to give me a stitching guide for when I sew these on. So you're going to go ahead and use a little bit of double-sided tape outside of the external seam allowance where we will be top stitching, and putting it down the center. This is to hold the strap buckle or the buckle in place while we sew. So we're going to be kind of working in this tube. I found it easiest to pull it right side out to do this. You may want to do it with just kind of going inside the tube, but this was the best way for me to be able to see where I'm putting it. So from the side seam, I'm measuring down 1.5 inches from the top point, and I'm making a mark. And this is where I am going to line up the fold of my buckle connector. So kind of press it as flat as you can and line the fold of that buckle connector up with that line, nice and centered, using that seam as a guide to find your center. And stick it down with tape. And then we're going to take this to the machine and we're going to sew it up here across that line we did and down. You just want to really make sure that you are only sewing through what you want. You're going to be pulling the other side of the bag out of the way because you don't want to be sewing the two sides together by accident. Again, this is the hardest part of this bag, and it's not that it's hard, it's just more awkward because you have to be very careful that you're only catching that one side. You can kind of see here as I move forward how I have the other side of the bag kind of squished in front of me, and I'm only sewing through the one side here. Across that line we just drew, and then back down the other side, making sure that nothing is tucked underneath that we don't want to be sewing through. I also used a little piece of scrap faux leather there just to put over my hardware under my walking foot when I was sewing over the hardware to make sure I didn't scrape it all up. Go ahead and do the same with the other side. Okay, so that is done. I went ahead and I put in a couple rivets just to secure a little more, backed with a small piece of Decovil Heavy for extra security. Go ahead and turn this wrong side out again. Now we are going to sew up the bottom, so match up the bottom straight edge and we are going to take this to the machine and sew across here with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance as well. Next, we have to box these corners. So you're going to pull them kind of out like so and match up that bottom seam and that side seam. I just have my seams nested here. You can open the seams up if you prefer, but nesting them worked well for me. Clip those corners in place and then sew across these with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, then go ahead and pull or push this right side out and admire your work as the exterior part is complete. Make sure you poke out your corners really good on the bottom. Make sure they're nice and sharp and that they squared off nicely, which mine did. You will see how our connector piece is nice and centered to that bottom seam. Now this is where, if you're going to be gluing the stabilizer in, go ahead and glue that into the bottom here. Again, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do a false bottom at the end of this tutorial. Okay, so for the lining pieces, I already went ahead and did my interior zipper pockets. If you need a class on how to do that, that's down below in the description. Make sure you leave the bottom of your zipper pocket open. Okay, so now we're going to work on our zipper. So you do not need your zipper pull and your zipper end just yet. What you're going to do is take your zipper tape, you're going to fold it down at a 90-degree angle like so on each side here. I'm securing it with a pin. Same with the other side, making it match up as close as possible with the one side that we have already done. Then we're going to take this to the machine and stitch these in place. Once that is done, go ahead and trim those zipper kind of dog ears off so it's nice and even with the zipper tape. Now on the back of the zipper tape on the opposite end, I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to draw a line, nice straight line on the back. And what this is for is when you go to put your zipper pull back on, you match up that line and it'll go on nice and straight. Go ahead, pull your zipper teeth apart. Okay, we're going to work with the back panel of our bag. So this is the panel I want on the back. We're measuring in 3/4 of an inch from each side. I'm going to use some double-sided tape. Go ahead and use some clips if you prefer. I'm putting tape in between those marks. Now with our zipper right side up, you're going to, where we have that 90-degree turn, we're going to match up with that mark that we made on the left. And when we reach the mark on the right there, we're going to veer the tail down like so and hold it with a clip. And go ahead and baste that in place with a 1/8 of an inch. Do the same on the opposite side, but you're going to see that your zipper tape looks like it's going the opposite way, which is okay. Take your time here and please, please, I really strongly suggest putting on a zipper foot. This is to ensure a really nice and even and straight zipper. It takes 30 seconds. Trust me, you will thank me for it later. So go ahead and baste that on. So there we go. You can see how they go. Make sure that our little 90-degree lines line up perfectly because we do want a nice and straight zipper there. We're going to take our top trims. Once again, I'm going to use double-sided tape. Use clips if your machine doesn't like tape. I'm going to put my tape along the bottom edge of my top trim. And then place this right sides together with my panel, sandwiching that zipper tape in between the lining and the top trim panel. Match up your centers and stick her down. You will have little dog ears on the side. That is perfectly fine. That is to make it so our angle is a perfect match. Go ahead and stitch this in place with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Now what we want to do is we want to make it so that seam is pointing towards the bottom of the lining, and we are going to top stitch that seam in place through the lining, the bottom lining part of our lining panel. Coco's saying hi to everybody. Okay, so that is all done. As you can see, next what we want to do is sew our side seams together. So I'm matching up the seams where our top trim and our lining meet. We want a nice continuous line there. Make sure you're putting your tails out of the way. I'm just going to use a few clips to hold them out of the way. You do not want to be accidentally sewing through those tails. Match up that seam and then clip all the way down the sides. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and sew down these side seams with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Would you believe we are so close to being done? Okay, so make sure those tails weren't caught. Make sure your lines lined up nicely, and they did. And now what we're going to do is we are going to sew our bottom, but not the whole thing. We're going to leave about this much here open for turning and just sew from the corner to those marked lines, leaving a hole in the bottom. Go ahead and box the corners exactly like we did with the exterior. And now we're already to the point where we are going to assemble the bag. Take your exterior, make sure your orientation is proper. As I see here, I want my zipper to be at the back of my bag, so I've switched my exterior around, putting them right sides together. Start with matching up the main panel centers of the lining and the exterior. Securing with clips. Same with the other side. And then matching up the side seams. It's always really good to work in quarter sections here, and then when you have the 4 quarter sections clipped in place, you can evenly distribute the fabric in between those quarter sections. Again, I'm just nesting my seams here. And go ahead and finish clipping all the way around. Okay, so if I was on my flatbed, I would be taking this and sewing it from the inside of the machine, but I'm going to take this to my cylinder arm and we are going to go around with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so make sure everything was caught good. I apologize for my autofocus going on this clip. Go ahead and pull it right side out through the opening in the bottom of that bag. Poke out all of your seams. Stuff the lining inside. And a finger press the seam here, pushing that top panel into the bag so the zipper is down below. Finger press and secure with clips to prepare for top stitching. Make sure that those sides where they kind of go a little higher are poked out nice and tight. And now we're going to go ahead and top stitch all the way around. Alright, so now we just need to close up the bottom of the bag. Again, I apologize for the autofocus. I do have this corrected now. So you're going to, through the opening in the zipper pocket, you're going to pull the bottom of the lining up and through the zipper pocket, clip together that straight edge, and sew across with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, sealing the bottom of the lining. Stuff the lining back in through that zipper pocket. Make sure there's no holes in the bottom, and then go ahead and sew or top stitch shut that lining of the zipper pocket. And that is the exterior of the bag done. Look how wonderful it looks. Now all we have to do is work on that false bottom that I'm adding in here. So I'm taking my corrugated plastic part, making sure that it fits in there nice and tight, which it does. So I did my measurements correctly. Now we're just going to make a sleeve for that corrugated plastic. So I'm taking my 2 pieces, right sides together, and we are going to sew with a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance around 2 of the long sides and 1 of the short sides. Okay, once that's done, you can go ahead and turn this right side out. Give it a good press if you want. I've done mine in 2 colors because it kind of gives it, it gives it so you can flip it over, kind of like a double-sided thing here. Go ahead and slip that corrugated plastic into the sleeve. It's going to be nice and tight. Fold over the raw edges of the open side. And then we're going to top stitch that shut. That's done. So all that's left to do, I already went on, put in my zipper pull and my zipper end. Put in your false bottom. Make sure your zipper works, which mine does. And to install the straps, I love that this is an adjustable strap, so go ahead and put your one end in. Decide which eyelet you want for your strap length. I'm going to go with the third one up. Buckle it in. Do the same with the other side. And we're done.
All right, that's it. That's all. What did you think about that? It's a fun sew. It was actually a pretty fast sew. The hardest part, I think, was actually putting on these connectors because you're kind of sewing it in a loop, but really nothing too crazy. I managed to film the whole tutorial and everything within a day. That's cut to finish, fusing and everything. I would say with practice, I'd probably be able to cut to finish this would be a 4 or 5 hour sew. What else? Yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out, leave a comment, email me, what have you. What else? Yeah, that's it. So I really do hope you liked this tutorial. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. If you'd like to support my channel further, you can definitely buy me a coffee. That link is down below in the description. And if you haven't yet and would like to check out my membership side where I have online classes and you'd like to take part in that, just hop on over to my front page and watch a little introduction video and see if that's something that you would like to partake in. Anyways, until the next one, bye!